Wednesday night at Villa Park. Chelsea walked into one of the most hostile atmospheres in English football, undermanned, under pressure and carrying the weight of a top four race that was beginning to slip away from them. And yet, when the final whistle blew, the scoreboard read Aston Villa 1, Chelsea 4. Jão Pedro had just scored a Premier League hat-trick. Cole Palmer had added his name to the score sheet and Liam Rosenior's side had announced loudly and clearly that they are not done fighting. But here is what made that result even more remarkable. Chelsea did not produce that performance with a full squad. They did not have all their weapons available. They went to Villa Park, missing key players, dealing with suspension and relying on a squad that has been tested to its limits in recent weeks. And they still won by 3 goals. Now Chelsea face Wrexham in the FA Cup 5th round on Saturday. And the injury picture surrounding this squad is one of the most important stories in English football right now, because what happens to these players over the next few weeks will determine whether Chelsea can sustain a push for Champions League football while also going deep in cup competitions. So today we are going to break it all down, every player, every injury, every timeline, every implication, because the reality for this club is that they are playing a game of numbers right now, and understanding those numbers is the difference between making the top 4 and falling short. Let us start with what was at stake going into Wednesday night. Chelsea went to Villa Park, sitting 5th in the Premier League table. They were below Liverpool on goal difference and 3 points behind both Aston Villa in 4th and Manchester United in 3rd. That is the context. That is the pressure that was sitting on Liam Rosenior's shoulders when his team kicked off at Villa Park. A loss or even a draw could have pushed Chelsea further from that Champions League picture. A win was not just desirable, it was necessary, and they delivered it. 4 goals, 3 points, a statement result. But before we get too comfortable celebrating that win, we need to address the players who were not available for it. Because those absences are not just a Wednesday night problem, they are an ongoing challenge that will define Chelsea's season. If you are serious about following this Chelsea story all the way through and you want the kind of detailed fact-based analysis that cuts through the noise, then hit that subscribe button right now. This channel, My Eye on Chelsea, is dedicated to giving you the full picture on everything happening at Stamford Bridge. Not headlines, not speculation, the real analysis. Subscribe and stay with us. Now let us go player by player. The first name we need to talk about is Estevão Willian. Estevão has been one of the standout performers in Chelsea's squad this season. His debut campaign has generated real excitement and his contribution was felt most recently when he scored the 3rd goal in Chelsea's 4-0 FA Cup 4th round win at Hull. That performance gave a glimpse of what this young player brings to the team. Pace, directness, a clinical edge in front of goal. But the situation is that Estevão has not featured since that Hull game. He has missed 3 Premier League matches, including Wednesday's win at Villa Park. The injury that has kept him out came on the eve of Chelsea's 1-1 draw against Burnley on February the 21st. He felt his hamstring before that match and was immediately sent for scans. The evidence suggests this was being managed carefully from the start. Hamstring injuries, particularly in young players who are asked to carry attacking responsibility week after week, require patience. Rush a hamstring and you risk a longer, more serious absence. Chelsea clearly decided that precaution was the right approach. And the latest update is encouraging. As of Tuesday this week, Rosenior confirmed that Estevão is now back on the pitch running. Those were the exact words, back on the pitch running. For anyone who follows injury recovery in football, you understand what that means. It means the healing phase is done. It means the player has passed the initial stages of rehabilitation and is now beginning to rebuild match sharpness and physical confidence. The potential return date being discussed is Saturday, March the 7th against Wrexham. That is this weekend. Whether Rosenior chooses to use him in an FA Cup tie, even if he is fit enough to be involved, is a separate question. But the fact that his name is being linked to a possible return this weekend tells you that the medical staff are satisfied with his progress. It is now clear that Estevão's return will be a significant moment for Chelsea's attacking options. He adds something different. He is direct, he creates chances and he finishes. Getting him back into the squad before the business end of the season is critical. The second player we need to examine is Jamie Gittens. Gittens was building momentum in Chelsea's attack before injury intervened, was starting to find form, contributing to Rosenior's system and giving the manager options on the wing. But in the 3-2 comeback win against West Ham on January the 31st, Gittens suffered a hamstring injury that ended his involvement for a significant stretch. Initially, the signals from the coaching staff suggested this was a more long-term absence. Rosén used language that pointed toward a lengthy spell on the sidelines. That is always the concerning type of communication from a manager, because it usually means the scan results were not ideal, but the situation has evolved. In the days leading up to Chelsea's trip to Arsenal, Rosén began delivering more positive updates. He described Gittens as progressing really well in his rehabilitation. That was a meaningful shift in language. From long-term absentee to progressing really well is not a small move. It suggests the recovery has gone better than the early assessment indicated. Then on Monday, the day before the Villa game, Rosén reiterated the positive signs. He said Gittens is doing well and that the quicker they get players fit and healthy, the better. That is a simple statement, but it carries weight. It tells you that the coaching staff are actively tracking his progress and want him back as soon as it is safe to bring him back. The potential return date for Gittens is during the month of March. There is no specific fixture attached to that timeline yet, but the direction of travel is clearly positive. The evidence suggests that Gittens could be available within the next 2 to 3 weeks if his rehabilitation continues on its current trajectory. For Chelsea, that return matters enormously. Rosén has spoken about wanting to dominate midfield areas, which has sometimes meant playing with only one dedicated winger. Having Gittens back as an option gives the manager more flexibility, more unpredictability and more attacking firepower from the flanks. Now we move to Dario Asugo. Asugo's Chelsea career has unfortunately been defined by injury so far this season. He underwent thigh surgery in September, which immediately wiped out the early part of his campaign. Just as there was hope of a return, he picked up a knock in training in December that extended his absence further. The reality for Asugo is that he has not made a single senior appearance for Chelsea this season. That is a difficult situation for any player, particularly one who came to the club with genuine expectations surrounding his development. However, the most recent update brings cautious optimism. Rosén confirmed that Asugo is back on the training pitch. That is progress, real tangible progress. The expected return window is during March, though no specific date has been confirmed. The careful language around his situation suggests the club is not going to rush him. They want him back properly, not partially. The potential return date for Asugo is sometime during March, with the club focused on ensuring his fitness is managed correctly before he is asked to contribute in a competitive match. And then there is Levi Colwill. This one is a different conversation entirely. Colwill is not dealing with a soft tissue injury or a short-term setback. He suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury last summer, and that is one of the most serious injuries a footballer can face. ACL recoveries are measured in months, not weeks. They test everything. Physical resilience, mental strength, patience. The situation with Colwill is that Chelsea will be hoping to have him available towards the end of this season, or if that proves too optimistic, at the start of pre-season in the summer. That is the realistic timeline when you are dealing with an ACL. What is encouraging is that Rosén has been consistently positive in his language when discussing Colwill. He described his long-term rehabilitation as going really well. That kind of language from a manager, when used carefully and consistently, carries genuine meaning. It tells you the player is hitting his milestones, responding well to the programme and staying mentally engaged with his recovery. For Chelsea, Colwill represents a significant piece of their defensive structure. Losing him for the majority of the season has been a real blow, and getting him back even for the final weeks of the campaign would be a meaningful boost, but the evidence suggests patience is still required. Now, let us look at the Wrexham side of this story. Chelsea travelled to Wrexham for the FA Cup 5th round on Saturday, and while the injury focus has understandably been on Chelsea's absences, Wrexham are also navigating their own fitness challenges heading into this fixture. Ben Sheaf is out for Wrexham. He is dealing with a muscular injury and is not expected to return for at least another week. Manager Phil Parkinson acknowledged his absence directly, saying the club needs certain players back and that Sheaf is unavailable for this game. Matty James is also ruled out. Parkinson was transparent about the situation here, explaining that James had a setback with a toe injury and still has a boot on for at least another week, possibly 10 days. The fracture had not healed as quickly as had been hoped. That is a straightforward injury update that tells you James will play no part against Chelsea. Liberato Kachechi is another Wrexham absentee. Parkinson acknowledged his continued absence, noting that he is still making progress but will not be available for the Chelsea game. So Wrexham are heading into this FA Cup 5th round tie against the reigning European champions, currently sitting in a playoff spot in the Championship without 3 of their players and facing a Chelsea side that just destroyed Aston Villa 4-1 in their last outing. The reality for Wrexham is that this fixture represents an enormous challenge, but also an enormous opportunity. FA Cup football is exactly the kind of stage where Championship clubs can make their mark. Parkinson himself acknowledged the challenge, but also the potential of the occasion. Now let us talk about the Alejandro Garnacho dimension to this story, because it is directly connected to the injury picture. The reason Garnacho got his opportunity at Villa Park on Wednesday was because of an absence. Pedro Neto was serving a one-match suspension following his red card against Arsenal. With Estevão also unavailable through injury, Rosén needed attacking options. Garnacho came in and delivered in a 4-1 win. The situation around Garnacho is interesting. He signed for Chelsea for £40 million from Manchester United last summer. He is 21 years old. Since Rosén took charge in January, Garnacho has started just 3 of 8 Premier League games. He has been an unused substitute in 3 of those fixtures, which is a significant detail. But Rosén's assessment of the player is clear and positive. He described Garnacho as a top player and an outstanding player. He explained that his tactical approach since taking charge, specifically wanting to dominate midfield areas, has sometimes meant deploying only one dedicated winger. That has limited Garnacho's opportunities, not his quality. What is particularly significant is what Rosén said about Garnacho being more than knocking on the door to start games. That is a strong signal. The manager is saying that the player's performances in training and in his substitute appearances have been good enough to justify a starting role. The tactical system was the limitation, not the player's output. Rosén also made a notable personal comment about Garnacho. He mentioned that the 21-year-old recently experienced a very difficult event in his personal life. He did not elaborate beyond that, but the acknowledgement itself is significant. It provides context for why a player with clear ability has taken time to find consistency. Managing personal difficulty while performing at the top level of football is not easy for anyone, let alone a player still in the early stages of his senior career. The situation for Saturday's game against Wrexham is that Garnacho is expected to start. Rosén confirmed he would likely line up against Parkinson's side in the FA Cup 5th round. Given his performance at Villa Park and the ongoing absences of Estevau and Gittens, that makes complete sense tactically. And Rosén's long-term message about Garnacho was equally important. His contract runs until 2032. The manager is not treating him as a squad player or a short-term option. He spoke about wanting Garnacho to develop consistency, to keep working hard and to let his quality show in a really consistent way. That is the language of a manager who sees a player as central to his project. Rosén also made a broader tactical point about Garnacho's position in the squad. He said that the schedule coming up will give Garnacho opportunities to play. And when you look at Chelsea's fixture list, that statement makes complete sense. They have the Wrexham FA Cup tie on Saturday, then a Champions League last 16 first leg against Paris Saint-Germain on Wednesday. The schedule is intense, the squad rotation will be necessary, and players like Garnacho will be needed. Now let us bring all of this together and look at the bigger picture for Chelsea. The evidence suggests that Chelsea are navigating one of the most demanding periods of their season. They are 5th in the Premier League, 3 points behind both Aston Villa in 4th and Manchester United in 3rd. They have Liverpool just below them on goal difference. Every result matters. And they are doing this while missing Estevão, Gittens, Asugo and Colwill. Pedro Neto, though, back from his one-match ban, now adds another layer to the squad management challenge. Mudryk remains absent due to his suspension, adding yet another missing name from what should be a full attacking roster. It is now clear that Rosén's ability to get results from a depleted squad is one of the defining themes of Chelsea's current season. The 4-1 win at Villa Park was not just a result. It was a statement about the depth and resilience of this squad. It was evidence that Chelsea can compete at the highest level, even without several of their most important attacking players. But the situation also tells you that Chelsea need their injured players back. The final stretch of the season, the top 4 race, the FA Cup, the Champions League knockout stages, all of it requires a fully loaded squad. Getting Estevão back this weekend, getting Gittens back in March, getting Asugo contributing again and holding on to hope that Colwill can feature before the season ends. These are not just nice stories, they are genuinely critical to Chelsea's ambitions. Rosén's management of these situations has been measured and transparent. He has not overpromised on timelines. He has not rushed players back before they were ready. He has communicated clearly and consistently, giving supporters an accurate picture of where each player stands. That kind of management matters. Bringing a player back too early from a hamstring injury does not save you a few weeks. It can cost you months. Rosén clearly understands that, and the way he has handled Estevão's recovery in particular, holding him out of 3 Premier League matches before confirming he is back running, suggests a careful and professional approach. The FA Cup tie against Wrexham on Saturday is its own story. This is the 5th round, the stage where the competition begins to carry real weight. Wrexham are not a soft opponent. They are a championship side competing for promotion. They have genuine quality, genuine organisation and genuine motivation to cause an upset against the reigning European champions. Chelsea will take this seriously. They have to. And Rosén's comment about Garnacho starting, combined with the likely absence of Estevão, Gittens, Asugo and Colwill, tells you that Chelsea will need their available players to deliver again. The real test of this squad will come in the weeks ahead. The Champions League knockout stages add a level of intensity and consequence that even the Premier League title race cannot quite match. And Chelsea are heading into that phase of the season with injury questions still unanswered and a top 4 battle still very much alive. The situation is this. Chelsea are a club that has just delivered one of the performances of their season against one of their direct rivals for Champions League football while missing 4 key players. That tells you something real and important about where this squad is and what they are capable of. But the injury picture also tells you that they are not yet operating at full capacity. Estevão coming back would be a genuine lift. Gittens returning in March would add another dimension. Asugo finding his feet in senior football, even towards the end of the season, would give Rosén more options. And if Colwill can feature even briefly before the campaign ends, it would be a welcome return for a player who has had a desperately difficult year through no fault of his own. The evidence from the past week suggests that Chelsea are heading in the right direction. The performances are there, the results are coming, the injured players are progressing through their recoveries, and the manager is handling the squad with composure and clarity. What happens next depends on many things. The results in the coming weeks, the health of the squad, the decisions Rosén makes about who plays and when. But based purely on what is happening right now, Chelsea's situation looks more positive than it did a few weeks ago. 3 points at Villa Park, players returning from injury, Garnacho stepping up, and a squad that is beginning to look like a genuine top 4 contender again. That is the story, that is the full picture. And here on Maya on Chelsea, the full picture is always what we give you. If this kind of analysis is what you are looking for, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below telling us which of these injury returns you are most excited about. Is it Estevão? Is it Gittens? And let us keep this conversation going. Maya on Chelsea, always analytical, always accurate, always Chelsea.